The NBA trade deadline is less than a day away. Do 4 losses in a row for the Houston Rockets have you thinking that they need to make a big splash by Thursday's 4 p.m. Central Time deadline? We'll look at those last 2 losses in particular, what went wrong, what was said after the fact, and an all-time bad take from an NBA player. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the live Gallant Says podcast.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
You kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, on X and Twitter at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, and Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. Central Time, or occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and on SoundCloud. If you ever want to cut me off mid-thought so that I answer a question or so that I just read something, assuming it's politically correct, super chat me on YouTube or Twitch, and I will play this for you.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
I'll listen, and I'll answer right there, but I will eventually get to your comments. The NBA trade deadline is Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time. I am recording this as of 4:17 Central Time, and it's been, to this point, quiet for the Houston Rockets, at least relative to the biggest possibilities for them in the next couple of hours. They did make a move. They acquired Jaden Springer and their 2030 second-round pick from Boston, and they will exchange heavily protected second rounders with Boston. Basically, they got Jaden Springer for nothing. And based off of a reel that at Biased Houston put out on X and Twitter, he is so Ime Udoka. This is a guy who gets a lot of steals, who hustles defensively, and doesn't seem to have any form of a jump shot, which is a big problem for the Rockets of late. Also, not having a ball handler. That hurts of late. I suppose if you want to flex about the move, take a look at what Celtics fan Bill Simmons had to say before the trade went down. He was expressing frustration with the fact that the Celtics didn't play him more. I don't know how he fits into the rotation. I don't know how much I'll even get to play because right now Tari Eason's out, Fred VanVleet's out. That's the only reason we got to see Reed Shepherd last night. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of this guy, but hey, they did make a move. The real question is, after 4 losses in a row, a close loss to the Memphis Grizzlies last Thursday where they couldn't close things out, a loss against the Knicks Monday, a loss against the Nets last night. Is it time for them to get somebody who's a little more serious and somebody that will put them into a different tier in the NBA? Right now, they're fun. They're in the honeymoon phase. We're all happy to watch them on a night-to-night basis. They give a shit. They play hard defense. They've got some fun players. But we're not really expecting them to go that far in the playoffs. Maybe the stretch from January 5th through the 28th, where they only lost 2 games. They beat Cleveland twice, and they beat Boston, and they beat Denver, and they beat Memphis a couple of times. Hell, they even beat the Lakers. Maybe that stretch had you thinking that this season has a higher ceiling than reality would provide. But I think now we're starting to see, this is a young basketball team. I think that last night's loss to the Brooklyn Nets was fucking embarrassing. I think you should feel the same way. But is it the kind of game that happens that makes you think to yourself, yeah, the Rockets need to shake things up seriously? I don't know. I doubt that Ime Udoka feels that way. I doubt that Rafael Stone, the Rockets GM, feels that way. But there are a couple of rumors out there about what the Rockets theoretically could do. Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated reported that the Rockets are not interested in discussing trades for their young players unless Devin Booker becomes available. Writes Mannix, quote, Houston continues to take a very disciplined approach to this trade deadline. The Rockets, arguably the NBA's biggest surprise this season, have not expressed any interest in engaging with teams about any of their top talent. As one exec put it, top young talent, unless you are calling them about Devin Booker, they are not interested. We also got this from The Athletic, and of course, this is going to get all the aggregators the clicks that they want. The Rockets, per The Athletic, could show interest in Kevin Durant. Could. I suppose that's all about the actual asking price of what the Suns are looking for Kevin Durant. I really do wonder how much you'd have to give up for him. The idea definitely excites you from this perspective. If you have a superstar, you could potentially see a team this young being annoying to the point of second round, third round of the playoffs in the West. But is that really what you want to do? And there's been all sorts of fun rumors involving Kevin Durant. There was even one last night where he could theoretically go back to the Warriors, which would be funny. He has diffused those rumors through Shams Charania, but Durant would be fun. And Durant, theoretically, wouldn't cost you as many young players as Devin Booker would. So would you make this happen? Would you bring Kevin Durant back to the great state of Texas? Of course, he played for the Texas Longhorns for a cup of coffee before getting drafted by the Sonics, moving to Oklahoma City, ultimately joining the Warriors. And remember, when he joined the Warriors, while he certainly won there, I don't think he was as well received as he thought he would be, not just by teammates, but also by the actual city. I think he thought to himself, people are going to look at me the same way that they look at Steph Curry. And I also think that he thought people would give him credit for finally getting that championship. And then it didn't happen, which has to suck if you're Kevin Durant, because it was ballsy to join a team that had beaten you. I know that a lot of people don't think it's the case, but I mean, the guy was getting absolutely crushed for joining Golden State. Calling him a coward, taking the easy way out. Some even might have said pussy. I mean, that's what happens when you take, in the eyes of some, the easy way out, or more importantly, make a team that already was awesome even more awesome. So I wonder if it's even a remote possibility, and it's going to entirely be determined by how much you'd have to trade for him. And I really don't know what Phoenix is realistically looking for. Is it draft picks? Is it some of the Rockets' young players? I don't know. A couple of comments on YouTube. At Paul Gallant, Jamarcus Tyrone says, they need to make a trade. This 4-game stretch has shown us the players need each other to succeed, and there is not a standout alpha. I think Amen Thompson can be that eventually, but that inbound pass that he had to wrap up last night's collapse against the Nets, one of the worst ones I've seen with 10 seconds to go. He's definitely got to be pissed at himself, and he's going to be pissed at himself for a little bit. Jalen Green at times thinks he is, but then at other times he just does things that aren't intelligent. He's 22, and the hope is that he gets better at that, but he makes these mistakes a lot. You got to learn from your mistakes too. It can't be just coaching that's getting you to buy in on defense, which he is buying in on. I thought he had a couple of nice defensive plays last night. But when the game is getting to the end and there's a minute left and you got Reed Shepherd taking a transition three with 21 seconds left on the shot clock, and then after an offensive rebound, Jalen Green's chucking it right back up, you got to wonder just how serious these guys are. They're young. Theoretically, they will get more intelligent as basketball players, but it's not like Jalen Green is new to the NBA. He's been here for a couple of years. Said comments on YouTube. Keep old-ass KD in Phoenix. We only want Book. We weren't even supposed to be this good this year. That is my feeling. I'm curious if the Rockets feel otherwise. I don't think Ime Udoka would. I don't think Rafael Stone would. It's really about, does Tillman Fertitta think to himself, hey, we're in phase 2. Let's push it all the way to phase 3. Let's make this a little bit quicker. Or does his son, Patrick Fertitta, look at the idea of adding a star to this team, even if it's a bit of a fading star in Kevin Durant, and say, fuck it, let's do it. But I'm skeptical that anything major of that caliber is going to happen by Thursday's 2 p.m. Central Time trade deadline. Artadamas picks with a couple of comments on my Instagram at Sports Gallant. I made that same inbounds pass in elementary school, but the opponent missed the game-winning shot. He also says KD still has what it takes for a good run, especially if he has a supporting cast that is this deep. I mean, last night there was no Fred VanVleet, who is week to week with an ankle injury, which to me sounds like he's back after the All-Star break. You also didn't have Tari Eason, and you're still deep enough to look at Reed Shepherd for the first time all year and say, oh yeah, didn't we draft him 3rd overall this season? There's just been no time for him to carve out to open the year. But now when you're watching Aaron Holiday last night as the Rockets' backup point guard, he gets the start, and it was just a rather ineffective performance. And Shepherd comes in and he did his best to stay on the court. You got to wonder if it's maybe time to go acquire somebody who's a good backup ball handler or someone who's better than Aaron Holiday. But that's, I think, the furthest the Rockets will go by the trade deadline. I did want to react to some of what's been said over the last couple of games and nights by members of the Houston Rockets, and specifically Ime Udoka, who I like. I'm so glad that they have Ime Udoka and that they don't have somebody like Steven Silas, who, let's be honest, was a bit of a pushover, right? I felt that he glad handled his players a little bit too much until the very end, where he had that one press conference where he just got out of character and absolutely crushed them. Instead, now you got Ime Udoka, who, after the Rockets lost to the New York Knicks on Thursday night, had this to say.
Coach playing his next team so quick.
Oh, hang on a second. You know what? This is all shuffled up and out of order. This is Ime Udoka talking about the end of Rockets and Knicks on Monday.
I don't think it was rim protection. I think it was one-on-one defense. A 46-point quarter. We scored 29. We scored 118. We scored enough points to win. But very soft and uncompetitive defensively, and just going at us one-on-one. And
I love it when he calls his team soft. I love it when Ime Udoka calls this team soft. And I think he should do it a little bit more. Why not? Now, what happens when you lose right after being called soft? I suppose you wonder if the message is being received. But this is more from Ime Udoka after the Rockets blew it in a 124-118 loss to the Knicks Monday night.
We're complaining about offensive fouls, not boxing out, not doing our assignment, getting back cut, off-ball actions. And that adds up to 46. And so scored enough to win.
They did score enough to win. They had a lead, significant one at one point. I wonder how Udoka looks at last night's loss, because this is what he said about the Rockets' loss to the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday.
Quickly, what is some of the things that you learned from the last game that you all need to improve on this game?
Just our effort from the start. Like I said, that was our worst game of the year by far from just a effort, competitive standpoint. Came off a really good road trip against some high-quality teams and had a letdown there. And then obviously our zone offense, where we struggle at times in that game specifically, but we're really good against Cleveland back-to-back games where they ran a ton of zone. And so getting back to, you can't just fall off a cliff because Fred's not out there to kind of get us into sets. And like I said, our man handling now needs to understand where to get guys situated in our zone offense.
That didn't age particularly well, given the way that Amen literally gave the game away to the Nets last night. Some more comments. Artradamus Pick says, we need a guy that can be the fourth quarter final shot guy. I hate the idea of having a final shot guy. I really do. It's one of the perks of this Rockets team being the way that it is. I feel like it's the NBA. Work the ball around. The open guy gets the final shot. More from Artradamus Picks on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Green can't hold the ball. Şengün is looking for the foul. Amen Thompson's too young. Fred doesn't have it. Cam Whitmore wants it. But there's no for sure person to take or handle the final minute of the game. Kevin Durant brings that to the table. I mean, more than anyone on this team, sure. Does Kevin Durant, though, long term, get you closer to a championship? Because I think even with Kevin Durant, there is a ceiling that you will eventually hit. There's probably somebody else who needs to be a little bit more developed, a little more polished. And my guess is Amen Thompson, who I already consider to be a star. Amen Thompson could be that guy someday. More comments on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Rob Cortez says, I'm team no trade. On Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, Daniel Oliveira says, Coach Udoka will get them in line. Next year's the year, in my opinion. They're probably going to stand pat. I think they should stand pat. And while they did make a move to acquire a bench player who couldn't get on the court from the Boston Celtics, Jaden Springer, who is so Ime Udoka, yeah, I don't think that they're going to do a whole lot more. Here is more Ime Udoka, this time talking about in that game against the Knicks, how the Rockets have been struggling in particular down the stretch, which of course happened again last night against Brooklyn.
I don't think it was rim protection. I think it was one-on-one defense. They have a 46-point quarter. We scored 29. We scored 118. We scored enough points to win. But
dang it, I just played the same cut again. This is what happens. See, I need a video or audio producer. So let's just shift on. Do you want to hear Calvin Murphy with a rant after last night's game? Here is the former Houston Rocket. He is sweating that he is so enraged on the Space City Home Network.
I've been involved in the NBA basketball scene for 56 years, and it never ceases to amaze me some of the stuff I've seen, but nothing like this. We were up 4 points with 9 seconds to go and had the ball.
It was...
and had the ball.
Yeah.
Now, this one hurt.
Hurt a lot.
This was a major game for the Rockets to come out with a victory.
You can see Calvin sweating. He's so pissed off here. And Kevin Eschenfelder, I think, who's a proposed pro, is trying to keep him in line because they are, of course, the Rockets' partner.
And they gave it away. That's all we can say about that. This is not radio. This is TV.
Hey, what the fuck, Calvin? What's wrong with radio?
And you saw what happened, Kevin. This one hurt. And they, as players, now I don't know about the staff, coaching staff, them as players should be angry with themselves.
Yes. Self-loathing. Hate yourself. I hate myself for pissing the game away against the Nets. That's a great Joan Jett song. Yeah, here's more Calvin Murphy ranting after last night's loss, which, as Joe Lee 713 says, was a punch in the gut.
It's about the clock, number one, and it's about getting something out of the possession. You got to come up with something, a foul shot or something.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I know for sure is the game's a lot easier sitting behind this desk than it is on that hardwood. That's for sure. It was a tough end of this one.
I love how pissed Calvin is after that one. Listen, nothing wrong with a rant from time to time. Rockets, let him rant. That was an absolute disgrace. Even Ime Udoka, after that game, would have properly called it out. And I mean, he seemed to believe that this game was offensive to the basketball gods. Here he is after last night's loss to the Nets.
More of the same, lack of physicality, toughness, all those things. And so we didn't really deserve to win the game, and basketball gods got us at the end.
Right you are, Ime, and they deserve to get him. Not enough effort there. Just not enough effort. We'll see if they do anything by the trade deadline tomorrow. I did want to talk about a couple of just random, only I would make these observations in last night's game. First off, Reed Shepherd's shot. It's not all the way there yet. That's for damn sure. But this moment in last night's game, going forward, Reed Shepherd is allowed to slap the court as much as he wants. In case you missed this sequence, where he goes up for a layup, gets rejected at the rim, stays with it, keeps playing defense probably because he's pissed off, almost steals the ball away, dives for it by the sideline. This man, he can slap the floor as much as he wants going forward. He does look like someone who would slap the court before putting in some extra effort in on defense, and I have no problem with that. I think it's time that we bring that back. Bring back, and I don't see color, but bring back white guys slapping the court at the NBA level. And if Shepherd keeps on getting some minutes, if that's the kind of defensive effort we're going to get, my God, how many guys on this team just give a shit? That's what I love about this team. Constant hustling, because they know that Ime Udoka is going to call them out if they don't. No stars, no me, no James Harden. It's just so much better now. Even with the 4 losses in a row, I still enjoy watching this team a whole lot more because I know they give a shit. They just got to stop doing dumb stuff at the end of the game. You got to be smart with the shots and the shot clock in particular when you have a lead. You got to be smart there. You can't take a heat check 3, Reed Shepherd, in your first ever big game with 21 seconds left on the shot clock. And Jalen Green, if the Rockets get an offensive rebound and they fire it back out to you, you got to hold on to it too. You're old enough. You should know better. Said comments on YouTube. The Rockets look tired. The way they play takes a lot out of you for an 82-game season. They should look better after the All-Star break, but it's going to be rough till then. Yeah, they're going to need Fred VanVleet back. And that is a good point, that this style does take a lot out of you. But I want these guys to know that that's how they're supposed to play. And they are a deep enough team where if you do not give Ime Udoka what he wants, he will sit your ass on the bench. We have seen that many times with Alperen Şengün. Now, if you listen to me recently, you'd know that I'm pretty annoyed with a subsection of Turkish Rockets fans who I think are constantly crying about xenophobia and racism when it comes to Şengün, who has made an all-star game. Like, they'll call Şengün horrible things when he has a bad night, but when he gets benched randomly, they'll accuse Ime Udoka of being racist, or if some hot taker or just a fan online comments about it, maybe it's pro Jalen Green at the expense of Alperen Şengün. These guys will always cry racism, xenophobia. And I'm very glad that they didn't see this moment last night from one Ryan Hollins, who talked about some of the Turkish Rockets fans, Turkish Şengün fans in attendance.
And again, he's the half-court engine for Houston, and he loves his fellow countrymen. Some say the Turkish Michael Jordan, the MVP chants. They pour in from the Turkish Mafia.
Turkish Mafia? Ryan, the Turkish Mafia, the aura is not maxing there. Now, I'm not going to narc on you to those psychos who think that everything is racism and xenophobia, but they're going to get pissed off about the Turkish Mafia. That implies crime. Bad. Listen, Bills fans don't know any better. They'll throw dildos onto fields, for Christ's sake. But you can't do this, Ryan. They'll come after you. And I like you. You've done a really good job. I think you and Craig Ackerman are developing quite the rapport on the Space City Home Network with my friend Vanessa Richardson as sideline reporter. But you guys need to be careful. Those people are crazy. Speaking of crazy people, how about this absolutely god-awful take from Dennis Schröder? He plays for the Golden State Warriors, and I don't know how many people saw this quote. I could not find any video of it, but Dennis Schröder, with the trade deadline approaching, had this to say about it. Quote, as transcribed by NBA Central, "It's like modern slavery. It's modern slavery at the end of the day." He doubled down in that first statement. "Everybody can decide where you're going, even if you have a contract. Yeah, of course, we make a lot of money and we can feed our families. But at the end of the day, if they say, you're not coming to work tomorrow, you're going over there, they can decide that. They got to change that a little bit." It's already been changed. You've got guys forcing themselves out of situations that they don't want to be a part of. Ultimately, the league is about entertaining as many people as possible, whether they are watching the games on TV or in person. The league is made more entertaining when there are more competitive teams. Trades are generally done to make a team more competitive. And while it might suck to have to pick up all your stuff at the drop of a hat and go from one city to another, from a nice city to a shithole, or vice versa, can we all agree that when you're making tens of millions of dollars a year, that you need to shut the fuck up and not compare things to slavery? Is that so much to ask for? These guys constantly get in their own way. There are numerous reasons for the NBA numbers not being so good this year. The actual product itself, the amount of three-point shots, the amount of flopping, the endless replay during games. The fact that there's as many games as there are. The fact that a lot of players don't play. The fact that a lot of players sometimes say things that they're not that informed on. I'm not saying shut up and dribble. Some guys actually are informed. It's not everybody, though. And does Dennis Schröder sound informed there? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I get it. He grew up in Germany. Didn't grow up in the United States. But Bucko, this is a poorly chosen comparison. And for the love of God, people out there, you got to stop making hyperbolistic comparisons to slavery when you are extremely fortunate. Yeah, we make a lot of money and we can feed our families. Oh, you do? Then it's not fucking slavery. Your family's not being split up. You know where you're from. You can't make comparisons to Hitler either. We gotta dial it back. Unless you're doing it sarcastically, this ain't done sarcastically. It's not. I gotta say about NBC Sports Bay Area, Guys, you should have posted the clip of this because when you put your foot in your mouth like this, you deserve to be shamed for it. There's a ton of people who would kill to have what Dennis Schröder has. The ability to make millions of dollars to play a game. And by the way, the same guy who has turned down an $84 million contract before. If you were playing in something similar to slavery, you wouldn't have the option to turn that down. And that seemed to backfire a little bit on your front. And I'm not trying to rub it in. I'm just saying, why do you feel the need to make a comparison to that? These players are acting like, oh man, it's so hard when we get traded. Luka Doncic, he bought a $15 million house. This is Anthony Edwards talking. I feel bad for him. Fuck off with that. Fuck all the way off. It's tiresome. And this is a guy in Dennis Schröder who has spoken with this very same outlet about experiencing racism in Germany. And I'm sure he actually did. But the idea that the trade deadline is similar to slavery is such a fuck you to the people who actually have been through stuff like that, which still happens in this world. It's a game. And on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap up today's Gallant Says podcast with that food for thought. It is available wherever you get your podcasts after the fact, Apple and Spotify, and also live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, Twitch at Gallant Says, X and Twitter at Gallant Says, on Instagram at Sports Gallant, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. Until tomorrow at 4 p.m., so long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday. Peace.